Okay, can you see my screen here?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
I can see it.
okay.
Yes, I can see you display presentation. Go ahead.
Good morning to you all. Thank you very much for being here, um, for taking the time to be here and listening to my dissertation. Um, First of all, before starting, I would like to thank my advisor, uh, Professor Jairo Alfonso Gutierrez, for all the patience and attention that he has had to deal with my work and I would like to thank you all for your comments and um, all the work that you've been doing in regards to these research project. Um, okay, the title of these research project is a descriptive survey research study for the perception of a possible implementation of a drama-based complementary program aiming to develop and strengthen English language skills and soft skills in high school students at Colegio Bilingüe Santa Marta. Um, I wanted to also mention that at first um, the title was intending to address the perception and the impact of the application of such program, a drama-based complementary program. But due to the fact that we entered the pandemic, it was not possible to progress to that stage of the research. So I was only allowed to advance to the point of observing the perception of the community or the high school community at Colegio Bilingüe Santa Marta. Okay, to begin with, we're going to set the context of this research, which is Colegio Bilingüe Santa Marta, otherwise known as CBSM, which is a private calendar B school. It is an international Catholic school located in the city of Santa Marta and the department of Magdalena, Colombia. This school offers education to preschool, elementary, middle, and high school students. It uses the teaching for understanding approach as its methodology, which is basically an inquiry and project-based methodology to teach its students. As we can see here in the map, Santa Marta is here, located in the coast region. You both know where this is, but I thought it would be important to set the location of this research project. When I started this research project, I had a lot of questions and concerns that led me to a main question. And the concerns that I had at first and the problems that I identified were that students were not fully engaged in their language learning process. And I'm talking about high school students. When I say high school students, I'm talking about students between grades 9 to 11. So that's why I came up with this first question, which was, how can high school students at Santa Marta Bilingual School be fully engaged in their language learning process? That was one of the main questions I had at the very beginning. Then it came to my mind, how can I contribute from my subject area to the development of lifelong skills in my students? And the reason why I had that question was because being at a school or working at a school, because I work at that school, by the way. I've been working there for about 5 years. And working at that school, I had that concern because project-based learning and teaching for understanding is aiming to that. It's aiming to not only teaching the subject, but also the possibility of teaching lifelong skills. So I was wondering how to do that when teaching English, when teaching a language. Also, another question that came up was, how can I make my students build self-confidence and overcome the fear of communicating in English? That's a huge concern, not only my concern, but the concern of most of the high school community and the teachers who are there all the time, well, with the students. Some of them lack of self-confidence, and they're always fearful of being bullied by other classmates because they want to express something in English, and sometimes they can't. And what they end up doing is obviously using their native language, which is Spanish. And finally, what will be the impact of a drama-based English program in high school students? This is a topic, a subject area that is very close to my heart because I like drama, and I've done several courses. I have developed several courses during the summer for children, but I had never thought of working with high school students on this area. And in the past, I had the experience of also teaching drama, so that's the reason why this topic was also close to my heart. In the end, after all those concerns and questions, I came up with this main question, which led me to this research project, which is intending to understand the perception of the high schools community at CBSM in regards to the possible implementation of a drama-based complementary English program aiming to strengthen not only English language skills, but soft skills. But then there was a question after these, and that was, what are the soft skills that I want to target? And thanks to the orientation of my advisor, I was able to come up with these four soft skills, which are time management, ease to communicate, resilience, and teamwork. Obviously, we know that in regards to language skills that are there is a set of fixed language skills which are never going to change, which are reading, listening, speaking, and writing. They're also divided in receptive and productive. If we were to talk about receptive skills, we will talk about reading and listening, and if we were to talk about productive skills, we would talk about speaking and writing. And obviously, drama would be the center of that purpose here. Okay. And that obviously led us to the general objective. And the general objective was to describe then the benefits and the perception of the schools community in the possible implementation of a drama-based complementary program aiming to strengthen English language skills, which in this case are reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and soft skills, which are time management, ease to communicate, resilience, teamwork, and creativity in high school students. We're at Colegio Bilingüe Santa Marta, otherwise known as CBSM. For our specific objectives, I came up with these specific objectives. I decided to identify the benefits of drama in language teaching and learning, and that was achieved through the process of obviously doing all the research that I did. And I was able to validate the perception of a schools community regarding the implementation of a complementary program that aims to strengthen language skills and soft skills in high school students, and that was done through the tool that I'm about to present. And obviously to propose a methodology to teach English and soft skills through a drama-based complementary program in high school. As I said at the very beginning, the intention was to implement it and test it, but due to the fact that the pandemic started, it was not possible to do that part, and that's mainly the reason why I achieved just the part of identifying, validating the perception. But anyways, I proposed a methodology based on the experience and everything that I had collected from this research. To speak about the theoretical background of this research project, it is mainly based on constructivism. And there are two authors that I want to highlight, which are Professors David Perkins and Tina Blythe from the Graduate School of Education at Harvard University. They are the ones who started the Teaching for Understanding methodology, which is now being addressed by Fusaro, Maria Fusaro, who is another scholar from Harvard University. And obviously, there are other scholars who are mentioning and are citing Professor Perkins and Professor Blythe's work, which are Celis who is an author from India, Sujati Nishi and Budiwati, who are also from India, and Proud from France. Okay, so the basis of this teaching for understanding approach is that the student is the center. As we know in constructivism, we talk about the student as being the center of the whole teaching learning process. We talk about proximal development zone, which is very important. We need to know what the student knows beforehand. We need to diagnose, and from there we pick on what's to come, right? But which is very interesting about this theoretical approach is that it is all based on projects and inquiry as well, which is related to asking good questions to the learner so that the learner can later demonstrate the skills. This is skill-based. This is not related to content, it's rather based on skills. And it also aims to develop the right and left hemispheres. As we know, when we talk about the right hemisphere, we focus more on sciences, but when we talk about the left, we talk about the arts, which is very important as well. And this approach, this teaching for understanding approach, intends to develop those hemispheres. Another very important scholar that sets the breaking ground of this research project is Dr. Stephen Krashen. Although he started his research back in the 1980s, there is a new researcher and scholar called Starter who talks about language and emotion, and obviously directly cites Dr. Stephen Krashen with his work on the affective filter. And the affective filter basically states that language acquisition cannot happen if we do not set the mood or the ground for the learner to learn. That is, the anxiety must be reduced so that the learner can actually activate something called the LAT, which is the language acquisition device, which is kind of an imaginary device in our brains that activates and allows us to learn. So Dr. Stephen Krashen talks about that language acquisition theory, and that's also part of this research project, and it is also related to drama and the fact that students need to lower anxiety in order for them to be able to produce. Another important scholar that is the core of my project is Professor Simon Bauman. Simon Bauman is cited by Doe, Bu, and Da Silva in my research project, Coroma, Darbu, Watts and Watts. And he basically talks about a theory which is called the liquid modernity, and basically what it states is that organizations and well, pretty much any business and any organization around the world is now turning into a state of liquidity, which means that everything is flexible and transparent to everyone. And what he refers to is to virtuality and how that requires people to be more human, people to be able to adapt, in other words, to be resilient, and of course, to have a set of skills that are called people skills, otherwise known as soft skills. So this is the reason why he makes part of also my research, and that will be the theoretical background. When I first started, I had a hypothesis, which was that a constructivist, drama-based complementary English program could be well perceived by the Santa Marta Bilingual Schools community, and there could be a positive impact in the development and training of English language skills, as well as soft skills. That was my My idea, based on what I had discussed with my colleagues and at school and parents and students beforehand, and but then I had to come up obviously with an instrument and a method to validate that. And the instrument that I chose was a Likert scale, a survey with 10 questions. And this survey was addressed to parents, teachers, administrative staff, welfare staff, directive staff, and students. I'm not going, due to the time, I'm not going to open it. You have access to this information in the appendix of the research paper. But the methodology was to understand the benefits at first. During the research, I had to understand the benefits, then determine the target population for this survey, which was, in this case, 134 people between grades 9 and 11. And when I say people, I'm talking about, again, parents, teachers, administrative staff, welfare staff, directive staff, and students. And the survey was sent via email to them. It was a Google Forms form. And after that, I was able to analyze and validate the perception and the possible impact. And finally, I was able to propose a teaching learning method related to, obviously, all my research. 98.6% of the total universe of the target population was surveyed. And what I mean by that is that there were 59 students, 58 parents in grades 9 to 11, 13 high school teachers, 2 administrators, 2 high school welfare professionals, a total of 134, and a total of 100 people were surveyed during this process. 56 students, 33 parents, 8 high school teachers, 2 administrators, 2 out of 2, and 1 welfare professional, 1 psychologist. Some of the relevant findings here, I'm not going to show them all, but I'm going to show you the most relevant, what I found most relevant. In this case was in question 1, today's and tomorrow's job market requires students to develop soft skills. In this case, I was very specific on those soft skills, which were ease to communicate, resilience, teamwork, time management, and creativity. Resilience, by the way, is a subject that is now being discussed a lot due to the pandemic, and people were more familiar with that concept when we did this survey. And as we can see here, 72% of the total population or target population agrees on that, totally agrees on that, and 25% agrees. Very low mark here on people who were undecided. And in today's and tomorrow's job market, reading, writing, speaking, and understanding the English language is, and people agree that it is very important, 70% important. And maybe there was one person who did not understand the question and answered moderately important. So what I conclude from that is that obviously soft skills and language skills are relevant to this target population, and they see it as something that needs to be there for them. In question 3, this is something that surprised me. I was not expecting this. When I asked, the Santa Marta Bilingual School currently runs complementary programs that are effectively developing and strengthening English language skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and soft skills is to communicate, resilience, teamwork, team management, and creativity. I was hoping that most of the people answered disagree. Yes, but we can see here that 50% of the people agree and 30% totally agree. What that means is that they see or they identify other programs at school that are aiming to that same purpose. And I was not counting on that. So that's really relevant and interesting to me. Anxiety levels, this is important. I was specifically talking on question 8, asking about the anxiety levels could be reduced, and motivation, which is very important. Anxiety levels are significantly reduced, motivation ignites, and there may be multiple learning opportunities for high school students enrolled in a theater-based constructivist English complementary program that allows them to create their own stories, propose, interact, and act as characters in audience of a stage performance. And as you can see, most of the people say that they totally agree and agree. There is a good number of people who are undecided, maybe because they don't know much about constructivism, which was a question that I was doubting to have, but finally I delivered it, and well, this is the response to that. But this means that there could be more research on this aspect as well. This also surprised me, which is a complementary program of English through theater can have positive impact on the performance of high school students at Colegio Bilingüe Santa Marta on tests such as CAT, PET, FCE, IELTS, TOEFL, and Saber. At school, we work with national and international tests, and that's the reason why I'm asking this question. And you can see here that the majority of people totally agree, but there is a good number of people who are undecided, and that also means that this could be also another subject to be considered for further research. And finally here, question 10, I would like Santa Marta Bilingual, which is a very important question. I would like the Santa Marta Bilingual School to implement a complementary theater-based English program to develop and strengthen English skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and soft skills, ease of communication, resilience, teamwork, and time management and creativity. And you can see that most of the people agree. There is a low margin of people who say possibly or probably not, but most of them definitely and probably would implement this type of program, which is important to the purpose of this research project. Some of the relevant findings I have already mentioned. The high school community has identified an implied value in other school activities, seeing in them a possible development of the targeted language and soft skills. What that means is that there could be further research, try to identify what are the other programs that they consider could be targeting those skills. We're talking about English skills and soft skills. And the target population agrees that an English drama-based complementary program can significantly reduce anxiety levels and ignite motivation in high school students. Although, again, this could also be considered in a deeper sense. Not all the community is prone to drama or theater as a subject. That's something relevant that was possible to be identified in the whole process of the survey. So that's maybe also the reason why they see other programs as a possibility to develop those skills. Parents, students, teachers, schools, administrators, and welfare department professionals at the Santa Marta Bilingual School seem to understand the benefits that an English drama-based complementary program underlay and are willing to have the school implementing this type of complementary program. And finally, there must be a well-structured methodology in order to guarantee the proper exposition and application of the language learning skills, as well as the proposed set of soft skills, which are, I'm not going to repeat them, communication skills, but okay, I'm not going to repeat them, so you already know them. Some of the relevant findings also relate to this part, which is the proposal of this methodology. Which is based on my own experience working at school, having the relationship with drama as well, and obviously validating all this information with the data collected from the research and all the research done. I was able to understand basically that there has to be a series of steps. There has to be a series of steps. And that requires obviously a methodology for the program to be implemented. And then what I proposed was an exploratory stage from 2 to 4 sessions in which the students are pre-assessed, obviously, on their language skills. They're organized in groups, and each student brings a story to share with the rest of the group, and a group chooses only one story to be staged. And the reason why I talk about this and I imply that the student should be the one bringing the story is because that relates to the student-centered approach. If you realize here, the student is the center and the students and their stories are the center. So the student is the one proposing his or her own story. And when they gather in groups, they obviously can talk and present or tell their stories rather than read them or anything else. And they can do that. It says here that they can do that in Spanish, and the reason why they can do that in Spanish is so that the anxiety could be lowered when obviously telling those stories, and also they could be exposed to different theatrical games in order to break the ice, in order to bond the group, and those games could also be addressed in Spanish or in the native language of the group. And here, obviously, we can see the application and development of and strengthening of communicative skills as well as the teamwork skills, because they're asked to gather in groups, because they're asked to communicate, to talk, and that's how these targeted skills that make part of my research project are used here or applied. On the second stage, which is 6 to 8 sessions, students identify vocabulary, expressions, and structures that may be analyzed with the guidance of the teacher. Obviously, what they had to do before was to tell their stories, and they had to negotiate, they had to talk, they had to come to an agreement on what was going to be the story that was going to be put on stage. Yes. So in this sense, students will be able to obviously apply those teamwork skills, which require also communicative skills, and which require also for students to be able to be resilient and adapt to the situation. Yes, and obviously to be able to manage the time, because all these sessions obviously have a time frame, and in that sense, language skills, not only language skills are applied here, but also the other set of skills that are targeted here on this research project. By the way, the student again keeps being the center of the process, and the teacher is there walking through and trying to obviously give feedback to the students as they identify vocabulary and expressions, obviously words that they don't know, phrases that they don't know, how to say or pronounce, or how to write in English, because they would have to write it. At first, they're just talking about it, but then they will have to write it, and there will have to be a document that is evidence of this process. By the way, this is just a summary of the different stages. For a more detailed process, you can see the research project in the final part of the conclusions. You can see these in a more detailed way. Creative stage, which is the part in which students are creating and adapting their stories. And why would they have to adapt? Because obviously that depends on the number of students participating in the group. That depends on how they want to approach the plot, which is the main conflict of the story. And here, obviously, creativity is put into action to make adaptations, and the application of English language skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, because it is the moment when they have to start planning, sketching, writing what they're going to be doing. And soft skills, such as communication, teamwork, resilience, time, work management, and creativity, are applied throughout the whole process. By the way, I forgot to mention, sorry, let me go back here. To mention that starting from stage 2, they would have to do that in English. I mean, at first on stage 1 they could do that in Spanish, but on stage 2 on, from stage 2 on, they would have to do it in English or in the target language. On stage 4, which is the production stage, which is 8 to 10 sessions, students are able to rehearse, and we can see something very important here related to language acquisition, which is repetition. Once they repeat and they're exposed to these over and over again, they start perfectioning in some way the words, the expressions that they did not know at the very beginning. And again, the student keeps being the center of the whole process. It is their proposal. In that way, we could ignite motivation. We could instill that autonomy in the students as well. Students rehearse their production and make their final performance. And obviously, all targeted skills should show to be stronger at this point. Finally, there is an assessment and a reflection, which is normally one session, and all groups provide feedback to each other and reflect on language and soft skills developed and strengthened through the process. Students are able to reflect on the application and development of the targeted skills. And this will be it for future steps or what's ahead in regards to these project. I think that a new instrument could be designed and applied to the high school community at CBSM in order to determine what are the other school programs in which they identify the development and strengthening of the targeted skills. I'm talking about, again, language skills and soft skills. And a new study could be centered on the impact of a drama-based program over the results of standardized national, international English tests as well. That's another subject area to be researched. And in a postgraduate stage, my idea is to continue the research and apply the proposed methodology and measure its impact over different target populations in preschool, not only high school, but also preschool, elementary, middle, and high school students. And obviously, why not a superior education at university level that could also be applied. The proposed teaching learning method could also be studied as an educational business model. I believe that. This would be my references. As I stated before, Beyond the Silva. Yes. And that'll be it. Thank you very much. I don't know if I passed the time limit, but thank you very much for.
Thank you, Alejandro. Yeah, it took more time than I thought. So I just want to open my camera. So it doesn't work well, but good. Okay, so I just want to congratulate you, Alejandro. So even if it seems like a simple or an easy job, I could see there is a strong theoretical research to support your statements. And the data analysis that you showed in the written report, so required a lot of time and effort. So I wanted to ask you about the reasons why you select drama as a strategy, but the answer is clear. So I just want to ask you 3 questions. And please be clear and brief, okay, in a few sentences. So why do we need to know about the community perceptions concerning the drama-based program? Why is that information important to you as a research?
Because I could not implement a program without the understanding of the perception of the community. If I were to implement that program within a community, I need to know what they think about that program, because if I'm talking about also student-centered approach, the students need to express and show that they are willing to go under that program and perceive the benefits of it.
Okay, perfect. Second question. What limitations did your study find or identify?
Well, a limitation was obviously the pandemic. As I stated at the very beginning, I was intending to implement this model and test it, run it, and see how it worked with the students. I had the chance to do it before with a small group of students, but I wanted to see the impact on the whole high school community, and it was not possible. The school was willing to do it, but I was not able to do it because of the pandemic. Obviously, that requires students to interact, to be socially active, and it's not possible.
Okay, and finally, what would you change if you were to conduct this study again?
Well, in that case, I think I would, if I were able to change anything, I would focus on a specific group of students, and I would try to adapt maybe under these circumstances to a virtual environment and see how that worked as well.
Okay, perfect. So I don't have more questions. I don't know if Professor Jairo, do you have more comments?
Yes, actually, the drama derivatives in theory lend meaning to language structure is very important. This research activity, this research experience inside bilingual schools, structuring by letting student experience the language in concrete. For example, not simply given a list of phrases typical of meeting to memorize for a vocabulary test, but has to role play a meeting situation. Yes, but this important because memorize difficult phrases in context. It is important. In Saudi drama, a student can practice using language in behavior adequate to potentially complex situation in the safety of the class. Mr. Celis, according to your insights, how could the drama foster, for example, resilience? How is that impact role-playing drama to foster this soft skill?
Okay.
Resilience, specific skill, yes, resilience.
Okay, sir.
For
Your
example,
voice is lagging a little bit, but I believe that you're asking about resilience and how could it be developed through this methodology? Is that what you're asking, sir?
yes, what is the relation? What is the
Okay,
relation between drama fostering this soft skill, resilience, for
sure.
example,
Resilience is the ability
or,
to
or size, yes, your insight, which was
yes,
applying this methodology, drama activities.
resilience is the ability to adapt during difficult situations, to adapt and be successful or achieving the goal uh, no matter what. If there is a difficulty, you adapt and you make changes and you try to achieve your goal. Through the whole process, we can see resilience present because at the very beginning, students are able to speak and tell their stories. But then later on, the group has to decide which of the stories has to be put onto a stage. And when they do that, they need to start thinking, okay, so how are we going to adapt it? How are we going to make changes maybe in the setting, maybe in the characters, so that they can adapt to the conflict or to the plot of the story. The plot cannot be changed, by the way. I forgot to mention that, but the plot cannot be changed. And in that sense, students are obviously working and developing that skill through the process. And as they do it repetitively, because this is to be a cycle to be done several times with different stories, they are obviously developing and strengthening not only that skill, but the other skills that I have already mentioned.
Okay, regarding the physical aspect, which include, for example, nonverbal body language, proxemics style, proxemic activities, and paraverbal communication, for example, intonation, stress, volume, pauses, that can become relevant to learning on several levels as outlined in so many different foreign levels. Uh, according to your science standpoint, for example, how did it fostered what is the relation? It role
Yes,
playing activities of drama is strengthening this specific skill, writing, according to inside standpoint.
yes. Talking about language skills specifically, they're meant to be developed because at first they need to speak. Well, obviously they do it in their native language, but when they try to transfer that into the target language, which in this case is English, then all the questions are going to start appearing. And the beautiful thing about this is that the questions are not going to be posed by the teacher, but they're going to be posed by the student. The student is going to be asking, how do I say this? How do I pronounce this? And I've seen that through the process of putting plays on stage. Students put their language, and as you said, not only language in the sense of uh, codes and phonemes, but also in the sense of culture context, also in the sense of body language, and how can I put it in a context so that I can deliver my message? And what if I had an audience that were only Americans? What if I had an audience that were only British people? And that is also something that could also be researched and covered in a deeper sense throughout this proposal. But it obviously relates in that sense. When talking about writing, well, when they go to the stage of planning, which is part of time management, they have to structure an outline. They have to structure what is the setting of the, well, first a synopsis of the story. What is the setting? What is the plot? What are the characters of the play? And in that sense, they need to be registering. And obviously later they need to come up with a script, and that script needs to be developed. It needs to be written and obviously revised by them, but also the teacher. And that's how the writing process is also strengthened in that process. Can you hear me?
my my microphone is off. Yes, ideally positive feelings such as enjoying a teamwork, collaboratives, increase atmosphere and pride in achievement will prevail. But even if negative emotions such as insecurity or state fright are occasional experience. Um, according to your insights in this research activity, for example, your insight about the emotional aspects are involved in drama activities direct and meta label, for example, direct and indirect or meta labeled aspects. According to the size, Celis, please.
Yes. When we talk about the affective filter in the learning process, in the language acquisition process, stated by Krashen and Starter, who also mentions Krashen, we need to set the mood, and that's the reason why on the stages of the process that I am proposing, or the methodology that I'm proposing, the first thing that needs to be done is to allow students to do the exercises in Spanish, their native language, at first. The reason is, again, so that anxiety could be lowered. And
Hispanics.
yeah, they could
In Spanish, yes.
they could lower their anxiety, and they could then be able to progress to the next stage, which is the planning and putting together that play, obviously in English. And that has a double intention there. One is to lower the anxiety. I mean, the fact of allowing students to speak in Spanish at first. One is to obviously lower anxiety, but the other is, as I mentioned before, so that the students activate questions and they start asking, how can I say this when transferring obviously to English? How can I say it? How can I put it into a context? How can I approach this? As we all know, there are a lot of expressions that mean one thing in Spanish, but they mean another in English. When we translate it literally to English, they mean another thing. So in that case, obviously, the teacher is fundamental in the process of accompanying, in accompanying the process, so that the students understand and are able to apply the language properly, not only in the sense of, again, codes and phonemes, but also in the sense of culture and context.
Okay, securely this is a possible implementation of a term-based complementary program aiming to develop and strengthen soft skills in the four skills of English. Okay, time over. Time over in I don't know, Teacher Kelly, if you have more question or comment and suggest.
Okay, teacher, no, I just have enough information for deliver a grade. So I will send you the document by the email. So for me, it's perfect. So congratulations, Alejandro.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Yeah, the act of this supporting of your thesis, the final grade later. Okay, Celis.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll be attentive.
Okay, congrats, excellent start.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent deployment of data, of these statistical figures, pictured. Congrats, really congrats. Indeed, is in fact an excellent implementation of in your curricula. Yes, your school.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you for your help. Thank you for your advice.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Thank you for being here.
Have a nice rest day, Gary.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye bye.